Hello and welcome to today's episode where we talked with Benedict Beaumont, breathwork facilitator and founder of Breathing Space, about, you guessed it, about breath. But this is a different kind of episode where we don't necessarily go into the science and neuroscience of breathwork. We don't explore specifically different practices and slower breathing and faster breathing and look into what different types of breath are for. We experience breath. Throughout the whole episode, Benedict really makes us feel our breath, connect with our breath, appreciate our breath. He takes us on some incredibly powerful breathwork exercises, as well as his journey into discovering and learning more about breathwork, what I love to call his origin story of becoming breathwork facilitator. So if you've heard episodes about breathwork before and you feel like, wait a minute, I've already been there, done that, hold on and please give this one a listen as well because it is a truly powerful episode.
But before we go into this episode, here is your reminder. Do subscribe, like, and share this episode. This is a very, very powerful episode with some amazing tools that are utilized on the episode and not spoken about. They're actually done within the episode. So share this episode with everybody who you know and like and subscribe and hit that notification button so that you are reminded of when we do upload new episodes. So, but now let's get into this really beautiful and breathing episode.
Hi, Benedict. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hi, Lenka. I am feeling really good, and thank you for inviting me on.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to see what we're going to get to talk about today. So to get us started, can you tell us a little bit more about, who you are, what you do? And always I like to come from the angle of why do you do what you do? What is it that gave you the spark, that gave you the fire, that gave you the interest to dive into the area, the expertise, the journey that you've been on? Why is it that you are doing what you're doing?
Thank you, Lenka. I'm a breathwork facilitator. I'm a breathwork facilitator, teacher, and founder of a breathwork school called Breathing Space. But you know what? Rather than just me talking about what I do, how about we dive straight into a practice? How about we just start sharing some breaths together? And if you're listening at home, please join in with us. This is how we start everything in Breathing Space, from a call to an interview to a seminar to a masterclass, just to stop, pause, and take some breaths together. So whatever way feels comfortable for you, eyes open or eyes closed, let's just share some breaths together. Thank you. That feels better, doesn't it? And you can't see this, but Natalie and Lenka are both nodding with big smiles on their face right now. Isn't it amazing how just stopping, pausing, and sharing a breath has a real effect? It changes the atmosphere and the energy. And, as a breathwork teacher, I teach loads of different techniques, but that one simple practice of stopping, pausing, and taking a breath, I think, is probably the most powerful. It is a game changer. It has revolutionized all my relationships, all of the conversations, especially the difficult ones that I have to have. That simple practice of stopping and sharing this incredible thing that we all do as humans. Now, I'm very happy to jump straight in and answer your original question, but if there's anything else you would like to respond or ask in follow-up to that practice, by all means.
Obviously, there's so much on my mind already coming through the breath, but I would still love to give you the space to tell us a bit more about your journey into breath work. For me, the kind of origin stories of how people discovered breath work, what was it that triggered them into getting interested, into practicing and exploring and learning, and obviously in your case, then going even deeper to becoming a teacher. That is something that I'm always fascinated because I have my own story. Natalie has her own story. So I'm curious about your story.
Thank you. And I love origin stories. There's so much power in them. Sometimes, when I look back, when I was going through my life, it didn't make any sense. There was just a series of random events. But when I look back and reflect upon it, there has been a clear path for me that has led me to this point. Now, I'm sure, like yourself, and I'm sure like many of your listeners, there's always been a part of me that has been aware that we are more than just this material world, more than just this skin and bones. There is a deeper internal life that we all have. And I knew very early on that I wanted to make the best of my own life. We only get one life. Why waste it? And for me, that wasn't achieving material success. It wasn't about earning as much money or getting the best job or career. You know what? It's not difficult. You don't have to be Einstein to look around at people who are, so-called materially successful to realize that they're no more happy, no more fulfilled, often less so than anyone else. So for me, I realized that the journey that I wanted to go on was an internal journey to reach the best possible version of myself. And throughout, most of my journey from, I suppose, from when I was at school, and the choices I made of what to study were about that deeper journey, including the choices that I made, for instance, what I studied at university, and then what I went on to do. My 20s, however, where I'm sure spent like any sane 20-year-old in having way too much fun. So I did all sorts of things in my 20s. I did a lot of traveling. I spent a lot of time backpacking, working abroad, a lot of time partying. I was in rock and roll bands. I was a film producer for a while. I also had a professional career, would you believe, as an IT consultant. And it was a bit strange because I would put on my suit, commute up to London and do a really professional job, and then get back on the train to take off my suit, put on my denim and leathers and get on stage and be a rock and roller. Crazy life. And by the end of my 20s, I burnt out from that. And it's a difficult life anyway, both having a corporate job and also trying to make it as a creative. And I'd reached the end of the road. But more important, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't really like the person that I'd become. First of all, that inauthentic version of me in a suit who hated his job, hated the commute, but also the other side, that crazy hedonistic party, guitar playing rock star wannabe. That didn't feel authentic either. So I took a long, hard look in the mirror and I realized I needed to change. And so I did. Externally, I decided to commit my life to making a difference in the world, to truly supporting other people, to be of service to the world. And practically, that meant I trained to become a teacher, a high school teacher, which, and I'm sure teachers. I'm sure your listeners know teachers. I'm sure some of them are teachers, and it's not easy teaching in high schools, but I did that. And I was a really good teacher, and I taught in some of the most challenging schools in the south of England. But internally, I started making some changes as well. I needed direction. I needed a path to follow. So that's when I discovered Buddhism and Dharma and meditation. There were many other things I started exploring at that point, from yoga to therapy to pretty much every self-help and self-development book on the shelf. But I took it really seriously. And so I had this life once more of that training internally with meditation and studying, and then externally being of service through the world. And that lasted up until my late 30s, when yet again, I had another burnout. and another breakdown. I think that's a good place just to pause for a moment, maybe take another breath. And from that early part of my origin story, just to see if there's any reflections or questions before I move on to the even more exciting part.
I really love how, life never we never see ahead often where life is taking us. Only in hindsight, we start connecting the dots and it starts making sense why we've ended up where we've ended up and often what has happened to us or what decisions we've made early on. I love the fact that you decided to become a teacher. Genuinely impressive feat of you know, career that we know how important teachers are and we know how undervalued in the society economy they are. So I respect that. I'm curious about, yeah, where the teaching has really what have been the major lessons from teaching, especially when you're teaching challenging students, high school or this kind of an age where I can see the anxiety, I can see lots of emotions happening and already being through burnout from career. Was there anything that really struck you in that role of a teacher that then inspired you really strongly for the steps forward?
Thank you, Lenka. That is a great question. I'm going to start with a piece of advice that I was given when I began teaching. It was the worst piece of advice I ever received. And that was come in hard, be really strict, be really stern. Then the kids will respect you. Absolutely wrong. That wasn't me. And because it wasn't me, because it wasn't authentic, none of the kids respected me. None of the kids responded to when I was trying to be that person. And what I realized, the lessons that I learned, being a teacher isn't about taking on that teacher persona. We are all naturally, as human beings, teachers. We are all mentors. We show up in all sorts of ways in just our natural everyday life as teachers, whether that's as a parent, for instance, or whether that is as a uncle or an aunt, whether it is just being a friend to someone who is younger than us, perhaps in work when we train other colleagues. The being a teacher really isn't anything different from being just a human being. And for me, the greatest lesson that I learned was to be authentic, was to be myself, to let my love of what I was doing to shine through. And that would naturally inspire the kids to want to do it the same. And, all the tactics and strategies that you get taught in teacher training, really, really, many of them get in the way of that real, honest communication and energy. So one of the most important things that I learned to be a successful teacher is to be myself, to really be authentically who I am. Kids are very clever. They can spot bullshit. I hope that's okay to say. But they can spot a fake and a fraud, and they are not shy in telling you what they think. And that is something that has really stood with me ever since, to be authentically yourself. I will say something else as well. When you try and pretend to be who you are not, when you are inauthentic, oh my goodness, it is so hard. It takes so much energy to put on a role or a hat or a mask and try and be something that you're not. It takes so much of your soul to do that, whether that is, trying to be the strict teacher in school, whether that's putting on a suit and traveling up to a job that you hate, that you can't do. It takes away from your being. It shutters off the light that you have inside. And one of the best pieces of advice is you don't have to do anything but be yourself, and everything else will work out for you.
Yeah, this makes so much sense. And I love how we're bringing back even, your experience of being a banker and going to London and having like proper corporate job or working in IT or whatever it is that people have build a career in that they believe the society is telling us this is how you get successful, this is how you become happy, this is how you make money, you have a career, you are striving to build something of authority and of respect. And then I love the contrast when you were sharing, like, and then I come home and I just put on my clothes that I like and I rock and I just have fun and I'm just myself. That must be so hard also early on in the career to just live these two lives, dualities. And so many people do that these days. So many people follow the path of education and then career. Sometimes it even reflects in relationships, having relationship, having family, trying to follow this linear path that we have been raised by, the society, the culture, the media to believe that this is how we're supposed to live our lives, versus what we're exploring here on the podcast is figuring the different lives that are genuinely ours, that are authentic, that are honest, that are messy, that are unpredictable, but that are ours, and that allow us to learn and explore and have fun and genuinely find happiness and fulfillment, and underlying that health, because the connection we've made on the podcast so often, it's authenticity and genuine life and being honest and open and authentic has a massive impact on our health and well-being.
I couldn't agree more, Lenka. I think you have summarized that so beautifully.
Yeah.
Shall I carry back to my
Is
shall I
there
carry back with my
anything,
story
yeah,
now?
yeah, is there anything that either, sparks a new train of thought, or if we then feel like let's continue on the journey, let's continue on how then you discovered Buddhism and discovered breathwork and really went deeper and further on your path?
Mm. I'll carry on with my story and let's see where that leads us. So there was I, at the end of my 30s, having studied and trained extensively in meditation and Buddhism, but I reached the end of that pathway. My journey with Dharma was profoundly transformative for me, but it had an end. As far as I could see and feel, it wasn't the end path. It was an important step, but I felt that there were real problems with the traditional form of Buddhism. It was way too masculine, well too disciplined, and do this and do that. And in many ways, it wasn't very different from some of the corporate places that I'd worked in. And I'd also reached the end of my practical day-to-day life as a teacher. I'd burnt out from that. Teaching is very demanding. And also, the education system, just as you've been describing, sets you up to try and live this linear life. You study hard, you get your grades, you can go to university, you'll have a successful life, you'll be happy. But, there is more than that. And so my place in the education system felt increasingly out of authenticity to who I wanted to be. So once again, I found myself burnt out, or perhaps breaking through to something, to perhaps where I wanted to be. But where do you go from that? Where do you go from that? Well, I did what any sane and sensible person does in that situation. I didn't have a wife or a family or children. I didn't really have any dependents or any responsibilities. So I sold everything. I sold everything. I bought a one-way ticket to Delhi in India. I bought a motorbike and I got lost. I got lost in India. And all sorts of things happened to me on that trip. One of the things that was surprising, that I was by myself. I was quite lonely. And so I started writing. And I'd always wanted to be an author and a writer. And then suddenly the words just started flowing out of me. It was magic. It suddenly felt that I could fly, or I could swim underwater. It was this strange skill. So I was writing thousands of words a day. Eventually that became, it became a blog, and then it became a book, and then a series of books. It was called A Last Chance Power Drive. And that was my journey of riding around India on a motorbike. But that led on to so many other things. I didn't go back to who I was in my 20s, but I embraced the freedom that I had in my 20s. I let go of the desire to have a career, to live that normal life. And so I opened myself up to a period of adventure. And I did all sorts of things for the next few years. I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. I didn't know what it was that I was meant to do, but I was open to it. And so here's just a few of the things that I did. I started running hospitality chalets in the French Alps. I became a chef and I started managing hotels. I trained to be a yoga teacher in Vancouver. I wrote a novel in Chiang Mai in Thailand. I hiked to Everest Base Camp where I met my wife, who shares my nomadic love of the world, and we carried on adventuring together. We lived in a car and traveled across North America from sea to shiny sea, all the way through Canada. We hiked through New Zealand on a path called the Te Araroa. We we did so many things together, but it was in Bali just after I had proposed to her, just after we became engaged, that just in Ubud, which is one of the great spiritual centers of the world, like Glastonbury or Ibiza, where there's magic in the soil and the air. And it was in Bali that I was just casually, socially invited to a breathwork session. And by that point, I thought I knew what breathwork was because I'd done a lot of meditation, a lot of yoga, I'd done all sorts of practices. So I thought we would just be doing some gentle breathing, perhaps some alternate nostril breathing in a nice, relaxing way. But no, I was not ready for what came next. And that was the moment my life really changed. Maybe that's another good point, just to stop, pause, take a breath. And see if there's any questions or reflections that would like to come before I move on.
So many questions, so many ideas, so many reflections. But one thing that is kind of on the back of my mind is still around the origin story. And I love that we got to the point of your original story with the breath work, that even through yoga and meditations, you knew breath work and yet you didn't fully grasp the depth and power of breathwork. For me, my journey to breathwork was through neuroscience. I love neuroscience. I'm more of the kind of a head first kind of a person. I need to learn and study and understand things. And for me, it was through my obsession with the Huberman Lab podcast, where Andrew would be mentioning James Nestor and his book Breath. And reading that book really realized how breath is everywhere. We breathe every single day, yet it's the most unutilized tool we have. We often, when we think of health and well-being and happiness, we look for other tools and other mechanics. It could be meditation, it could be visualization, it could be all sorts of different modalities. And yet we have this incredible, powerful tool within us, biologically given to us. We all have it. We all breathe every second of our lives. And yet we really don't understand the power that we hold in the tool. So I'm curious then for you, when you had this experience of the breath work, how was that realization of the breath, the power, true power, rather than, yes, meditation can calm us down. We have different variations of the breath work. But what was it that really kind of kicked you awake, I would almost say, because for me it was the awakening of, oh my gosh, I have this incredible thing within me that I've never understood how to utilize, and all sorts of things I can do with that.
Thank you, Lenka. Well, you know what? I could describe that moment. I could share that experience. But I think there's an opportunity here to do something a little bit deeper. Rather than just me talking and sharing, how about we share some breaths together? How about I take you on a very short but quite powerful little breathwork journey? So maybe too you can meet your breath and meet how powerful it can be. Are you both willing to do that?
Yes, let's do it.
And for those of you who are listening at home, please join in with us, but please only do this practice if you are in a supported position where you can be undisturbed for the next 5 minutes. Please don't do this practice if you are driving, if you are juggling with knives or playing with fire or operating heavy machinery or anything like that. Just give yourself this moment to breathe. Or perhaps if you are otherwise engaged, pause it here. And when you do have some space, come back. We are going to do a 2-minute practice of conscious connected breathwork, which is one of the most powerful breathworks. It is more like a psychedelic experience or plant medicine than just the breathworks that you might have encountered in yoga or meditation that is really calming, that will drop you into your parasympathetic nervous system. This is something very different. This is the breathwork that changed my life. So give yourself a shake, a bit of a movement. Find yourself in a comfortable position where you can be still for a few moments. Close your eyes and just start gently breathing in and out through your nose. That's it. Now, there's all sorts of physical sensations from where you are being supported to the feeling of your chest and your belly expanding and contracting as you breathe. But I want you to bring all of your attention and all of your focus onto the sensation of the air entering and leaving your body through your nose. It will be cool as it comes into your body. That's it. Bring all of your awareness, all of your attention to the sensation of the air entering and leaving into your body. Now, on an inhale, I want you to take your awareness inside. Follow your breath down to that still, quiet place within. This place of stillness and sanctuary is also a place of deep wisdom, a place where you fundamentally, deep down, know all the answers, know what to do, know what to say, know what to feel. In just a few breaths, I want you to feel that. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to breathe fully and deeply. But I'm going to invite you just to feel into a question. If there was a gift for you in your breath right now, perhaps something you wish to receive, maybe something you wish to let go of, a pattern of behavior, a memory that is no longer serving you, perhaps a wound that you need to move on from, a relationship or a situation, insight or creativity. If there was a gift for you in your breath right now, what would that be? You don't have to know the answer. You don't have to think it. Just feel in your body. And when we breathe, let's see if something arises for you. We're going to do a 2-minute breathwork practice. If we do it for longer, there are many contraindications I need to talk to. But for 2 minutes, this practice is safe for everyone. But please make sure you are seated or lying down. Now open your mouth wide, really wide, as if you are taking a bite of an apple. Start taking full body breaths. In and out through the mouth. Wide open mouth. Now, no pauses at the top or the bottom. As one breath ends, the next begins. That's it. Full deep breaths, wide open mouth, no pauses at the top, no pauses at the bottom. Pull on the inhale, let go on the exhale. Your throat may go dry, that's fine. It will self-lubricate. You may get dizzy or lightheaded, that's fine. You are seated or lying down, you cannot fall over. Keep breathing. Stay in touch with your breath. You've already done over a minute now. Keep going. Widen your mouth if it is starting to close. deepen your breath. If you wish to go for it, you can breathe faster. Invite the breath in. Imagine it is a light entering your body. Imagine it is not just coming in through your mouth, but through your skin, through your feet, through your arms, through every part of your body. 30 seconds to go. So for these 30 seconds, breathe as if your life depended upon it. That's it. You can do this. 10 more seconds to go. 5 more breaths. One more. Now close your mouth. Put some pauses in your breath. As your body returns to equilibrium, as the buzzing in your ear, as the heartbeat pounding, as the dizziness fades, as you return to balance, let's return once more to that question. If there was a gift for you in your breath right now, perhaps something you wish to receive, to invite in, or maybe to let go of, a pattern of behavior, a characteristic, perhaps the pain from a wound, if there's something you wish to let go of, what would that be? A few more breaths. Now, let's begin our journey back. Bring some movement into your body, stretching your hands out wide, moving your shoulders, perhaps stretching your arms out wide, or even wrapping yourself up in an embrace. When you're ready, you can blink your eyes open. Look around the room that you're in. Just notice an object, a window or a door or a lamp. And then give yourself a smile. Well done. Well done. You have truly met your breath in those moments. Thank you for sharing them with me. Every conscious breath that we take is a form of activism. It lights ourselves up, but it also lights the way for others and gives them permission to do the same. Natalie, Lenka, thank you for joining me in that practice.
Thank you for this.
Thank you so much. We've talked a lot about breath work and we've done smaller ones on some of the other guests, but I think that's the deepest one we've done with a guest on the podcast. So thank you very much. It's very I don't quite know the words to say, like inspiring, motivational, but calming as well, and resting. So thank you so much for sharing that with myself, with Lenka, and with all our listeners. So thank you so much.
After a breath work, we always have an opportunity to share. It's very powerful for ourselves to help the integration process as we articulate anything that we might have felt, but it's also very powerful for others. If there is something that came up for you in that very short breath work that we did, then please, I would love you to share it.
So for me, it's actually very timely, because yesterday I did a lot of inner work, all day session with somebody, and doing a lot. So it's quite timely. Is I was able to tap into what I was dealing with yesterday, and is just enabled me to almost carry on with that work, because it was very intense. I have been tired all day, and actually now after that breath work, I'm actually feel more not as tired, so more sort of alive is not the right word, but it's almost like I needed to do that to complete yesterday. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what came up for me. It was sort of really connected to all that work I did yesterday, and just trying to work on integrating that today, and then doing that breath work, which has given me some more energy to carry on. And it's also now given me another tool to really play this back and have that session when I feel that I want to reconnect to that integration. So that's what that brought up for me. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Amazing. Amazing. What a powerful experience to have all the work that you did yesterday to come into integration through our breath. And I'm not surprised that you're feeling more vital. I can see it in you. I'm sorry that your listeners can't see how much light there is dancing in your eyes and color there is shining out from your face. Natalie, thank you for sharing that experience. Let's all feel that with Natalie by sharing a breath together. Lenka.
It's interesting how, as I said before, sometimes things happen in our lives at the time when they're supposed to happen. We're recording this interview at a very random time. You book through a link, you find a time that suits you, and we never know where it's going to hit us in our lives. And it is interesting that for me, I've been in the last couple of days looking for ways to get more into calming my nervous system. There have been a few things I'm like, I think overall I'm doing pretty well. I'm happy. These things are happening, but there are a few things where I'm like, I think that there's still some anxiety inside my nervous system. There's still things around my health and well-being where I know it's not consciously happening, but there's something deep-rooted trauma and challenges that I've been through in life that still are coming up in my nervous system. And as you were asking for a gift, as you were asking for, encouraging us to tap into it, for me, that was the kind of guidance on what do I do? Where do I start? How can I heal? What do I need to be doing, feeling, or letting go of in terms of to tap into to resetting my nervous system? And again, felt completely lost. As Natalie said, incredibly powerful session, and I can't wait to redo it again without part of my brain thinking about the fact we're on a podcast and I need to be able to perform afterwards, to be fully able to immerse myself into it, just sit down and let it kind of wash over me fully. But even in this capability, even in this part of, I could feel, already the nervous system settling down, but also feeling like, okay, I now know so much more. I'm realizing so much more around what I need to be doing next and where I need to be focusing my energy to go deeper on my healing journey. So thank you.
Thank you, Lenka, for sharing that as well. And you know what? I mean, it was a random time that we found, but there is no time that it is not good to share some breaths together, to just connect to our breath, because our breath is with us at every single moment. It is with us through the beautiful moments. It is with us through the challenging moments. There is no moment, I think, in our lives that cannot be improved by our breath, by a deeper connection with our breath. Lenka, thank you for sharing your experience, and I hope we get to share more breaths together as well. Let's have a breath. And well done, both of you. It is really difficult to switch off from that podcast host where you've got to worry about the technical things, where the conversation is going, to surrender to an experience like that. But you both really committed to it. So well done.
So after that whole beautiful breathwork session, I would like to just take you back a little bit, is when you were talking about, the travels. You sold up everything, you got a one-way ticket to India, you bought a motorbike, and that sort of started you on a journey, and that's taken you Vancouver, Bali, New Zealand. I mean, it's all over the place. And when you were explaining this journey and talking about it, one of the things that came to my mind was, in the olden days, before all technology, before life as we know it now was set in, is very often, mostly men, but sometimes women, would go on a pilgrimage, would go on a journey to find themselves, to learn, to study for whatever reason. Very often they would just travel. And when you do that, when you sort of letting go of all the shoulding and where you should be doing or what you should be doing, or just letting go of who you were and finding different ways, this is something that not many people do because we're not supposed to do it. It's not part of life. You are supposed to go to university, get a job, stay in that job, have a marriage, buy a house, just that linear journey that we are told from a very young age to do. And it's almost like you've taken what we know, when as human beings, what we instinctively know is these pilgrimages, whether it's a short walk along that route in Spain, whether it's going from one country to another, whether it's hiking up Everest, whatever journey it is, it's part of finding who we are. It's also, sometimes youngsters would do it to become a man, go from being a boy to a man. Women would also do it to try and learn things, to experience different things. And I think that was so important when you shared that journey, because we are very much about more life in one's life. And pilgrimages, I think, are very much part of that. Is, yes, you don't have to be as dramatic or as long as you have been. They can be shorter ones. I mean, life and commitments and circumstances, yes, but doing something, whether it's doing that hiking trail in America or in Spain, and I can't remember their names. I'm sure Lenka will remind us just now, but it is, or whether it's going to a different country and just really experiencing it. I mean, Lenka's even on some sort of a pilgrimage, traveling in her van. It is, I think, something that is so important. And the question that I'm sort of leading up to is, for you, I know that all the external experiences and the writing and that, but you as a human, how did this journey sort of help you to really reconnect with who you are as a human being?
Natalie, I really love what you shared there. I mentioned earlier in the podcast that my desire to have an internal journey in my life started very early in my life when I chose what I would study. I studied anthropology at university, and I love learning about the rites and the rituals of different cultures around the world, and the rites of passage that people go through, where their journey into adulthood, for instance, or into a particular role in society, began with sometimes a very challenging journey that they would take, whether that's going off into the desert for 40 days or whether that is going on a pilgrimage to somewhere. And so that has been very, important in my life. I mean, I started my first travels when I was, very in my very early 20s. And I will say one of the aspects of that was that I got a taste for it. And I'm sure you find this is when you do try and actually put more life into your life. You don't want to settle for second best. You don't want to go back to having less life. And it is for the same for me for going on pilgrimages and exploring And in that period of my life, in my early 40s, when I started, reconnecting with that part, there's so many lessons. I think the biggest one is the freedom that you get to choose who you want to be, not necessarily what you want to do, but who you want to be in this world when you let go of everything that you've gone on before. I actually I had a near-death experience when I was on my motorbike in the deserts of Rajasthan. And at that moment in my life, I felt my life was complete because I had achieved pretty much everything that I wanted to. I'd become an inspirational teacher. I'd let go of that vain and that arrogant party person that I was in my 20s, and I had been of service to the world. Even more than that, I had changed internally with a strong practice, and I felt, I don't know what else is left. And as I was driving through the deserts, like on dusty roads, hours from anywhere, a tractor came along towards me, was passing me, and then turned into the path of my motorbike. And that was it. My bike smashed into a million pieces, and I was avoided by hitting this huge iron tractor by less than an inch. My life almost ended in that moment. And I realized that there was more to life. As I was just getting ready to move on, that I'd accepted that I didn't have to do anything more, then I was gifted what felt like a second life. And I grabbed it with everything that I had to wring as much out of every single moment that I could. And it hasn't really left since then. It hasn't changed.
Thank you for sharing that, and the power of realizations. We don't always have to smack into a tractor to get those realizations, and really glad that you missed being torn to pieces by a tractor. But these things can come to us in many different forms, and they don't always have to be a life and death situation. So thank you for sharing. And it just goes to show that when you do feel complete and you think there's nothing more, there is always more, and there's more to learn or find out or guide people or teach. So thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. So this is where we ask, Benedict, may we please have your gold nugget?
Absolutely. As a breathwork facilitator and teacher, I'm going to base my answer in the breath. Our breath is something that we take for granted. We do it every single moment of our lives. We do it unconsciously, but it is more than that. It is something deeper. For me, it is my best friend and my wisest counsel. I believe there is a doorway that we can open with our breath that will help light us up, helping us unleash so much creativity, so much love, so much life within us. So my invitation, my plea to everyone who is listening to this is to find some way to connect to your breath. That might be just taking more conscious breaths, being aware of how you're breathing. It might be perhaps reading a book about breath work, and there are so many great ones, or finding some podcasts. Perhaps it will actually be committing to doing some practice. And there's so many ways that you can do that. There's so many free workshops that are out there on the internet, so many YouTube videos. It might be with a practitioner who is close to you, but your breath will not let you down. It really can be your best friend and your wisest counsel. So feel that now with a breath. This is the golden nugget, not what I have said, but your breath that is yours.
Thank you so much. And this is why we love our golden nuggets. Really appreciate that. And the challenge to our listeners and to myself and Lenka to really keep connected and connect to breath. So thank you very much. Now, for our listeners, if they, listening to this episode and they think, you know what, I need some of Benedict, I need to find out more, I need to connect, I want to learn more, I want to be in his circle, where can people find you?
I'm absolutely passionate about the breath and for people to experience their breath. And really, you can do anything to find breath work. But if you wish to connect with me, the easiest way to do is to Google my name and breathwork. You'll find my school's website, which is Breathing Space. And on there is a whole world of breathwork. There is information that you can find out about breathwork. But most importantly, there's ways that you can experience your breath. We run 5 free online workshops every single week. So wherever you are, whichever time zone, whatever your work and life commitments, one of those will work for you. And you can come and go on a deeper journey with your breath. Now, in this podcast, we did a 2-minute breathwork practice. In those hour-long workshops, you'll do 30 minutes. And if you felt the power in 2 minutes, imagine what could happen in 30 minutes. Of course, there's more than that. There's courses that you can take, some free taster courses, there's some paid courses, or if you really want to go on a journey with your breath, perhaps you'd like to train and do what I do and lead others in their breath. Perhaps it might lead you to being a guest on a podcast and sharing your love and passion for the breath as well.
And of course, all the links will be down below in the description so people can find your website, they can find your social media, they can find all the events, they can get in touch easily. Thank you so much for all that you've given us today. I always like to finish off the podcast with a simple question because we are here about life, about finding more ways to live happier, healthier, fulfilling lives. I'm always curious to know what gives you life right now, what it is in the world that really you're like, okay, this is the power, this is the sparkle, this is what gives me life. And it can be work related, it can be breathwork related, it could be something completely random and funny. It's up to you.
Thank you. That's a great question. And you know what? I'm going to subvert that question a little bit, because what is coming to me is not what is giving me life. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to share what is taking life away from me, which might be a little bit surprising. I'm a parent, and I'm sure many of your listeners are as well. I've got 2 young daughters, aged 3 and 5. The breathwork journey that I've been on has been challenging at times. It's been great. It's been beautiful. The hardest journey I have ever been on and continue to go on is being a parent, because every single moment it is hard work to raise your children in a conscious, loving way where you're not zoned out, you're not switched off, you're present for them, you're meeting them where they are as your best self, as a role model of what a man and a parent and an adult can be, is really tiring. And so, although it feels like it is maybe taking life from me, because there is less of life for me to do what I like to do, to go traveling, for instance, to watch terrible television, or to read books, or to do self-care. There is less for me, and I know that your listeners will feel that as well. But it is also giving life. It is also nurturing and growing a life for the future. I'm incredibly proud of my daughters. I love them beyond measure, and they are growing into some extraordinary human beings. So the life that maybe is being taken from me or being given from me freely is perhaps growing in a way that is so much more, so much bigger than me, into something absolutely amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you very much for sharing your passion, giving us a 2-minute breathing space and breathing way of doing something. Thank you so much, and sharing your energy with us. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us today.
Lenka, Natalie, it has been a real honor and privilege to be with you today. Perhaps we might close as we started, just by sharing a breath together. Thank you.
And for our listeners, what have you got from today? Wow, a 2-minute live breathwork session. And hopefully you were in a seating or lying position and you could actually take part. if you weren't able to take part, do play back, do keep this episode, because that was such a powerful tool, a powerful exercise. And if you've done breathwork before or haven't done breathwork before, we would love to know your thoughts, love to know where you are on your journey. And if you did that exercise, what did that do for you? How did you feel afterwards? What questions were answered, or anything? What came up for you during that exercise? Do let us know in the comments. And until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.